Well. I'm back with part 3 of drawing Hollow Knight characters as humans, and I never thought I would make it this far. And since this is part 3, I thought I would work more freely. I'm not gonna work as cleanly and also toss out the idea of making things quote unquote realistic as said in the previous parts. Changing the design choices and having more fun with drawing the designs overall. With part 1 and 2, the designs reference real life armor and clothing and are for the most part based in reality. With this part though, I wanted to just do what I want with the outfits, and while the designs will still reference real life clothing and stuff, they probably won't be as realistic and a bit more fantastical maybe. Since the last part, I also binge watched some more lore videos and honestly, just videos in general about Hollow Knight, which was helpful, but even after watching some videos, some of the story and lore still made no sense to me. One of them was the story of the Grimm trope, and even after watching videos of them, I still understood nothing. I think I'm just too head empty to understand. And if you're wondering why I'm specifically talking about the Grimm trope, well, it's because the first character I will be drawing is Grimm, and I wanted to do some research on them and their group. So, as I said, I'd be head empty, so I don't know how much researching actually helped. Grimm's design, from what I understand, is largely based on vampires and Dracula, and so that would be the main theme for the outfit of the human form. I largely referenced the outfit of the 1931 film Dracula for Grimm, with the main under outfit being formal wear. As Grimm is also a trope leader, I thought of having elements of an entertainer group would also fit. I don't know why when I think of a trope, I think of a jester, even though it doesn't really have any relations, and wouldn't match Grimm's personality. At least from what I understand. Even then, I still tried to implement some elements of Jester's outfits into the design, but nothing looked right, so I chose not to, which was likely for the better. I did keep the Jester's hat though to act as the horns cause I couldn't think of anything else. With the mask, I really wanted to add an additional line on the bottom since we see Grimm magically create a mouse with sharp fangs, and I wanted to show that on the mask, but it just didn't look right. I experimented with a plain straight line as well as jagged lines to represent teeth, to replicate the fangs and all of that, but ultimately decided not to add any. After a bit, I decided to redo the drawing into one that has more interesting camera angles since I felt the one I did before was pretty boring. And like I said, I wanted to have some more fun doing these drawings. I also didn't bother doing a clean line art and jumped straight into doing a rough colors and cleaning things up. I added the design of Grimm's body in a less intrusive manner with it being a red undershirt with a striped pattern worn underneath the suit. I also added some kind of random design like a stripe on the lapel and cuff of the suit, as well as on the hat being worn because it looks somewhat plain without having anything there. I thought it would be a bit fancy to add them. For some reason, I forgot that Grimm's face mask was heart-shaped, so after finishing the other parts, I went back and cut out a portion of the mask, and that's Grimm done. Or so I would say, but we still have Grimmchild to draw. Well, I technically didn't draw Grimmchild right away, but rather I went back after working on some of the other characters, then began working on Grimmchild, and as a result, there might have been a slight style gap, though I don't really think it was too big to be noticeable. The way I went about designing Grimmchild was pretty much the same as Grimm, but just smaller. I went with the fully evolved version of Grimmchild since it has the most design stuff to work with and cause, well, it's the fully evolved version. The only difference would be the clothes under the cape, which is full red with segmentation and even some triangles from the Jester idea I ended up not drawing on Grimm. The wings become, as I briefly said earlier, the cape being worn. And well, with that, we have both Grimm and Grimmchild done. Yeah. Very interesting first drawing for part 3, starting off with a duo drawing. Next up, we have the being that seemed to be far above, the Pale King. It said that the Pale King was depicted as being an imposing, gleaming figure and that he was bright and radiant in visage, with the delicate flower's pure aura being no match for his light, which, truthfully, makes it very intimidating for me to try and draw them. I don't think I'll be able to capture even an ounce of their said greatness, so don't blame me if you're let down, okay? With that being said, I already had a strong image of what I wanted the Pale King to look like as a human, being a knight-like king clad in armor. It would be a fully silver or grey design, including the armor since the Pale King is completely monotone. So I did try to add some color to the drawing through the light reflections of the armor with blues and purples. I did question how I should do the head a bit, like should I have it show a face wearing the crown or should I have it be a helmet with the crown being a part of it? And well, the second option was what I chose, since the crown on the original is literally attached to their head, and so I drew the crown attached to the helmet. Sorry for anyone who wanted me to draw the Pale King with a beautiful face. I also gave the Pale King his long cloak, so I do wonder if I should have added some shoulder pads where the cloak would hang from to give the appearance of a broader build to make him look more imposing, but well, Pale King be looking kinda skinny, so I thought I shouldn't. Besides, I think I made him fairly broad anyways. I forgot about the segmentation in the cloak at first, so I had to go back near the end of the drawing to add the segmented design. I think I should have done it earlier though, so that I could have further built upon the segmented look. I did add the mouse on the worm as the pattern of the piece that the cape is attached to, but it just looks kind of goofy. It's fine though. Since the Pale King has lots of sharp parts, same as how they looked as the worm with lots of spikes, I thought I should incorporate spikes into the armor design as well, but I wasn't sure how to add them in an interesting way without it looking edgy. I tried to incorporate some spikes to the waist armor, but it just ended up looking goofy. Seeing how bad it looked, yeah, I knew I was definitely gonna fail if I tried adding spikes elsewhere, so I just surrendered. I felt the armor design was somewhat plain, so I tried finding a design to put onto the armor to make it not as boring. I ended up putting the pattern seen on the pure needle since it's said to be crafted to perfection, so I thought, hey, it will work as a pattern on the Pale King's armor as well. At first I went in with a full pattern on the forearm, but thought maybe that was a bit too much. I cut back a bit on the legs, but looking at it now, I wonder if I should have just fully committed. What do you think? Should I have just gone all in with the pattern? Anyways, with that we have the Pale King done. He looks more like just a regular fully armored knight with the Pale King's helmet rather than the Pale King himself, but I guess it'll do. Since we've gone and drawn the Pale King, maybe we should draw another high level being next. So maybe one that's not as friendly towards us. How about the Radiance? It took me a good while deciding on what pose I should draw the Radiance in since I thought it should be an interesting one, but I couldn't come up with any pose that fits my understanding of the character, so I just decided on a simple pose of them somewhat floating. I really wanted to show how imposing they are and with an expression like they're looking down on you, and I mean, when you go and do crazy stuff like summoning spears and swords from nowhere like Gilgamesh and fire beams of light, why wouldn't you look down on others? The crown, for the most part, I kept its shape the same as the original, but I added some flair to it and made it a bit fancier. Namely with the base, since in the original it connects to the head like with Pale King. I added some orange beads to the base of the crown as well, both to make it fancier, but I also thought it's a good way to link the Radiance with the Infected, because in the original, there's not really any visible connection between the Radiance and the Infected in terms of design. Going on with stuff on the head, I gave the Radiance a short fluffy type hair and I'm not sure if it's just me, but the Radiance gives me a really strong short hair character type feel to it. With the legs, I was wondering if I should just go full militarylist with it and make it bladed legs, since the original, it looks like the lower half is a giant blade of sorts. But I was like, would it be too fantastical if I made their legs large blades? So I decided not to, which, looking at the rest of the design, yeah, I don't think it would have really made a difference. I also incorporated the hole in the original by adding a small gap in the inner thigh part of both leg armor, which kinda defeats the purpose of armor, but I guess hey, fantasy. And if you're wondering what's around the neck, I have no clue. Your guess is as good as mine. I just added it because I felt it was empty and, well, I wanted something there to fill in the space. And with that, if you're also thinking that the pattern on the chest is dumb, it probably is. Just like with the neck area, I felt the main torso was also fairly plain, so I wanted to add some design, so I thought of adding the mask we see on the Radiance on top of the chest. While it looks goofy, it helps fill up the empty space in the area, so I just left it. Yeah. Then there are the tendrils that make up the wings. At first I was thinking of making it into something like a cape, but then the idea of making some sleeves came into mind, and it's what I chose to go with since I thought it was interesting, but also fits with the original design. I also thought it would be fun to add some strands coming out of the hair like a ribbon or hair extensions. Not sure if there's a proper name since I have no knowledge of fashion, but yes. To finish it off, I decided to add the glowing rings behind the Radiance to show how high standing they are and match with the original. I did wonder if I should have had her hold a spear to show the connection to the weapon since she can just spawn them out of nowhere, but decided not to cause well, I was just lazy. But yeah, do you think I should have had the Radiance hold on to a spear or some other weapon? And does she look majestic? I hope so. Either way, I had lots of fun drawing the Radiance as a human. Now for the last character, and well, for this one, I decided to let you all vote on who to draw, and well, it's quite obvious who won the poll. When I saw how big of a difference it was between Quarrel and the other characters, I honestly felt kind of bad, and that it was maybe a bit unfair. Well, anyways, it's time to draw Quarrel. And even though Quarrel was the character you all voted for, I'm gonna apologize now in saying that unlike the other characters I've drawn, I actually have no clue how to go about drawing Quarrel as a human. I wasn't sure what design or look would be good for them. I did get some Ronin type vibes from whenever I saw or interacted with them, and since that was the only lead I had on the design, I went full in on that idea. However, when I tried to implement Ronin elements into the human form, it honestly looked very meh to me. Like, it wasn't bad per se, but it also didn't really feel like Quarrel. Also, I don't know if I'm saying Quarrel correctly. Quarrel. When I tried to think of how I would make it feel more like Quarrel, I wasn't really sure. I wasn't sure if I should have Quarrel show their face or keep the mask, but since I couldn't come up with a good face design, I decided to keep the mask. And if I were to draw a face, I would probably go with somewhat older face with some facial hair. And that design is honestly very influenced by the characters of Countryside Swordsman or Swordsmaster, because I was reading that when I was drawing Quarrel, so I kind of was influenced by it. Also, this is probably just me for some reason. I get a dirty blonde hair color vibe from Quarrel, so yeah, that's what I went with the hair color. At first, I had the square armor design of traditional Japanese armor drawn in, but it didn't look right, so I just went with normal plate armor while still keeping the tattered kimono on the outside. I also added bandages on the wrist of Quarrel mainly for the design choice, but when I drew them in, I was planning for their arms to just be skin tone. However, I decided to change them to black clothes to match the original design with the black limbs. And because of that, the bandages wrapped around the wrist may look out of place, so I also felt that if I removed them, the arm would feel somewhat empty. Aside from the plate armor on the torso, I kept the rest of the design Ronin and traditional Japanese wear inspired, such as the pants and shoes, and I'm honestly surprised how well matched the plate armor and traditional Japanese wear fits in with one another. I had some struggle with making the hand holding the sword look right, and even after changing some stuff, it still doesn't look quite right. At first I was thinking maybe it looks wrong because Quarrel is straight up just holding the blade of the sword, so I decided to change up the blade a bit and put it in a sheath, but it still didn't look right. I then tried fixing the hand and finger posture, but something still felt wrong. Maybe it has to do something with the size of the hand, but I can't figure it out. With the sword, I also added a bit more flair to it with a wrapped grip and simple pattern on the pommel of the sword. I also added more bandages on the part of the sheath Quarrel was holding, and since I decided to draw a sheath, I also added a belt that wraps around the sheath to keep it at Quarrel's side without holding it. With that, Quarrel is completed! What do you think about their look? I most definitely could have done better, but I have no clue how to go about with the design, so yeah, this is what you get. Well, with that, we have 4 more characters completed this video! Yeah! What do you think about the characters drawn this time? They be looking good? Well, anyways, thank you all so much for being interested in this series to the point where I would end up making a part 3, and I hope you guys will continue enjoying the videos I make. Anyway, till next time, bye bye!